They arrived looking for food. They fled in despair and chaos. More than 100 injured, at least 17 dead, according to health officials in Gaza, killed in a rain of gunfire and artillery shells. According to eyewitnesses on the ground, they were fired by the Israeli military.
We were sitting on the sand waiting for relief deliveries, and suddenly the shells came down on us. There are body parts of martyrs. We were just waiting for a bag of flour.
We want to live, we want to eat. We have children and women. We want to live. There are people chopped up because of a sack of flour. We are people who want to live and want to eat.
The Israel Defense Forces says it fired warning shots to distant suspects who posed a threat to the troops. But the deaths at dawn today have been echoed throughout the last 2 weeks. This morning's incident happened just south of Gaza City at the northernmost food distribution site operated by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the new aid program backed by the US and Israel. They have just 3 other sites across Gaza. Yesterday, at the centre in the Tal al-Sultan area of Rafah, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry said 6 people were killed and 99 injured. Almost every day since the GHF began distributing aid 15 days ago, there have been deadly incidents. Gaza's health ministry say 141 people have died and around 1,400 injured, all from these aid distribution sites. The Israeli military have said they are looking into today's incident but dispute the numbers killed and wounded. At the Al-Shifa hospital, where many of today's victims were brought, the numbers are almost arbitrary, say doctors, when every day they are overwhelmed and under-resourced.
There hasn't been a single pill of medication entering Gaza for more than 3 months. We have a great shortage of anaesthetic, medications for intensive care and for the emergency department. We don't even have enough resources to fix fractures or enough sterilised bandages.
Grief isn't limited to any one location in Gaza. The victims here in Khan Yunis weren't trying to get aid. Their loved ones died in tents sheltering displaced people. Tents that offer little defence to the elements and no defence to an Israeli airstrike. It's unknown how many combatants were killed, but many of the 19 dead were women and children, according to Gazan health officials. Israel say throughout this war they've killed more than 20,000 militants, although without providing any evidence. And this evening, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there is meaningful progress on a ceasefire with Hamas, but said it was too early to hope. For many here, hope is all they have.
Well, we asked the Foreign Office for an interview, but nobody was available. Earlier, I spoke to Michal Kotlevunsh, who's been appointed by the Israeli Foreign Ministry as Special Envoy for combating anti-Semitism. I began by asking her about the latest attack on an aid distribution point in Gaza, and why did she think this continued on an almost daily basis?
You know, Matt, the reason it happens on a daily basis is that the Hamas is a genocidal terror organization that actually has used its civilians as human shields and sacrifices, and aided and abetted by international distribution agencies such as UNRWA, has actually been directly helped.
Okay, well, let's talk about the sanctions imposed by our government against 2 of your government ministers. What's your reaction to those sanctions? And they were, basically they were imposed. Foreign Secretary said today, David Lammy, that their language has been monstrous, that's the quote from him, inciting violence and serious abuses of Palestinian human rights. Your reaction, please.
Well, from my understanding of the State of Israel as a sovereign democracy, and I would expect the UK as a sovereign democracy to treat it as such, the sanctioning of freely elected sitting ministers in a government with whom I may vehemently oppose but respect democracy is actually to be condemned by all who cherish democracies.
Governments are free to criticize other governments, and governments are free to impose sanctions on other governments. It happens all the time.
Sure, except that this is not criticism. And as you stated, it is actually sanctioning on 2 sitting ministers in a democratic fellow democracy country, the only democracy in the Middle East I know of. And you mentioned some of the words that were utilized, but I didn't see what it is that was regarded as incitement. I would like to see it so that we can ensure that the UK actually holds to account other ministers or senior officials of other countries and holds to account its own senior officials and ministers when they do overstep and use those words of incitement, whatever it is that they may be.
So Mr. Smotrich, the finance minister, said the West Bank will be annexed by will be annexed by Israel. Palestinians will be totally despairing in the Gaza Strip. And the Gaza Strip, he said, and I quote, will be totally destroyed so that they leave the Gaza Strip and move somewhere else.
But as I said, I can vehemently oppose, as I do, the statements made by those and other ministers. But the point is the principle. A democratically elected government, the UK is no longer colonizing the Middle East. The state of Israel is an independent, sovereign state. It is a democracy like all other democracies. And if we do not understand that it is democracy that is under attack by what is a rising axis of evil and its genocidal terror proxies, and that statements that actually then ban the democracies that are defending themselves from an openly declared intent to annihilate them, embolden that genocidal intent.
But I wonder if it's equally unacceptable for Mr. Smotrich, the finance minister, to say, as he did before October the 7th, that Palestinians have three choices. They can either leave the occupied territories, they can die, or they can live as second-class citizens in a greater Israel. Is that acceptable?
You can keep quoting individuals with whom I may and I do vehemently disagree, but that does not represent what the point of this is, and that is
the point of this is to sanction members of your government.
It's not about criticism. This is about sanctioning freely elected ministers in a democratic state that is meant to be an ally. And if we're going to apply this principle, we have to apply it equally across the board. That means we should be applying it not just to democracies, but to non-democracies with whom the UK seems to have no problem dealing with, such as Qatar, such as Turkey, such as many others.
I mean, you don't agree with what they're saying. There are many Israelis, I've met them, who really don't like what they're saying. Let me finish my question. They don't like what these people stand for. The only reason why you're putting up with them is because they keep Netanyahu in power. They keep the coalition afloat.
Matt, this is a democracy. We have a parliamentary system, as you do. Israel is a democracy. It's a sovereign country. It will continue to fight for its defense. It will continue to do so according to international law and the highest standards of international laws of war. And it will defend itself and continue to represent not only the fight against this genocidal terror organizations, their proxies, and the states from which they have absolutely undermined the human rights of the people in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Gaza itself, as in Iran. And therefore, we will continue to be on the front lines of this war with hope that we do have allies around the world that understand this existential moment. And with that, I really have to go. Thank you.
Michal Kotlowunsch, thank you very much.
Thank you.